Hi, everyone. Welcome. We will get started in just a second. I do want to just give a couple quick housekeeping tips. So welcome to our webinar today. This is Google Cloud on VMware, some tips and tricks. So my name's Julianne Berg. I am with the VMUG team. So just appreciate everyone coming today. Three quick things before we get started. The first is that we are recording the webinar. So if you have any questions or you missed part of it or what have you, we'll have it up on the website tomorrow so you can view it again. So that's first thing. The second thing is if you have any questions, please put them directly into the Q&A box. Sometimes the chat gets a little busy and our speakers will miss them. So just be sure that you put them in the Q&A and we'll make sure to answer all those. And then the third thing is there's a very short few question survey after the event that will pop up as you're shutting down. If you could just answer those questions for us, that would be really great. Gives the speakers feedback and then also gives VMUG feedback to the kind of events you'd like to see moving forward. So those are the couple quick things to get started. And I am going to introduce Michael Roy from the Broadcom team to get us started.
Bam. Okay. Thanks, Julian. Really appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Michael Roy, your guide into the VCF division, aka VMware by Broadcom. Pardon me. We're here with another installment of our ongoing series of webcasts, continuing our mission to help the community of admins, aka you, in every way that we can. Help you be successful with VCF and the new VMware technology by Broadcom and all the offerings associated with that. And today, one of those offerings is on our topic. We'll be talking about the Google Cloud for VMware Engine, aka GCVE. And we're actually joined by some of our most valued friends here at Google to help talk about this today. You can probably see Matt in our feed right here. So I've said it 100 times and I'll say it again here, but the cloud is not a place. It's an operating model. But sometimes having your cloud in a specific place makes a lot of sense. And it really depends on kind of what you're doing. With GCVE, you can have a full stack VCF deployment, powered, racked, stacked by the gurus at Google, wired up to the same backend that powers Google's cloud services. And that gives admins this new kind of superpower. Brings together the traditional off-the-shelf applications and in-house custom-built solutions that are running on top of Google Cloud. But this allows you to manage things using the same tools and processes that you use to manage your on-premises VMware infrastructure every day. So you might have seen that Google recently held its annual Cloud Next conference. And there are some exciting key updates and takeaways that folks like yourselves might want to be aware of. So in this session, we're going to cover what's new, but we'll also cover some of the interesting capabilities that GCVE delivers, such as flexible node configurations, deeply integrated networking, as well as the VMware Cloud Foundation VCF license portability. Huge win for everybody in there. So this combined, it empowers folks like you to deploy VMware workloads across your entire cloud footprint, wherever it is, with greater flexibility and choice. You're also going to hear a little bit about how customers are leveraging Google Cloud services like AI and analytics to extract meaningful insights, not just junk data, and deliver innovative new services on top of that. So with us today from the VCF division at Broadcom, we have Ryan Massey. He's going to come out in a little bit, do some demos for us. He's one of our principal solution architects specialized on GCVE. As well, as you can probably see right here, we've got one of our friends at Google, Matt Mendonza, and he's a senior product manager on the Google Cloud VMware team. So he's actually responsible for a breadth of product areas, including automation, Terraform. Mitchell and I are good friends, love Terraform, HCX, business uptime, disaster recovery, commercialization, all kinds of fun stuff like that. He's also a longtime technologist with deep expertise in storage, compute, and virtualization. He's actually been a product manager for like 15 years, about as long as I have. And he manages both mature as well as 0 to 1 products. So this guy knows what he's talking about. From what I hear, he actually started his VMware career as a technical consultant working with CD-ROMs back before we had USB support for these things. And so from what I understand, he's a big fan of hiking around in the mountains of Colorado. So that being said, Matt, why don't you go ahead and take us away and tell us all the great new things that GCVE announced and where we're taking it in the future?
Absolutely.
Take it
Thank
away.
you for the intro, Michael. Hey, everyone. Like I said, I'm Matt Mendoza, product manager over here on the GCVE team. Let me share my presentation and we can get a start here on what's going on. So let's talk about Google Cloud VMware Engine and what's new in 2025. So we'll walk through a few things. Why GCVE, a quick technical overview and demo from Ryan. We'll then go through the roadmap of some soon to be released and recently released features, talk about a few customer success stories, and take Q&A from y'all. So first, why Google Cloud VMware Engine? Why VMware Engine in Google Cloud? We have taken what we think of as a unique approach to integrating Google Cloud with VMware. So we've made an enterprise grade product. We took the enterprise fault tolerance that we have for the rest of the Google services and try to bring that to VMware running in the cloud. So we have 4 nines of uptime for a cluster. We have FTT2 in a single zone. We also have multi-zone configurations. We have access to the fully integrated networking. So that same built-in VPC integration where you have access to Google's global network and seamless access to all of the other GCP services with no setting up of any complex routing or endpoints to manage. You always get that global layer 2 network that Google provides. And it's a native service. We've fully integrated GCVE as a native service. It runs right alongside all of the other Google Cloud services. So you can use our integrated IAM and security. It's a first-party service for identity, for billing, and part of our enterprise-grade support. And we've built Google Cloud VMware Engine to be able to be augmented with all of the other GCP services. And so what you see on this slide, these are all services that we have real customers have integrated into their service, into their VMware Engine service. So things like storage, we have file store and NetApp volumes that folks have integrated. We have Google's Cloud Key Management System for enhanced security and Cloud IAM and Cloud Armor. We have cloud logging and cloud monitoring that we've integrated in. We have people using more AI use cases by integrating BigQuery and Vertex AI into their data sources in VMware Engine. And then integration with VPC networking, cloud load balancing, and also our custom-built backup and DR solution, which is a cloud-first backup and DR solution just for VMware in Google Cloud. And we have, I think, some very unique features, compared to some of the other public cloud providers. We're the only public cloud provider that has an SLA with 4 nines. So if uptime and zonal failure is a big worry for you, we have 4 nines of uptime and we have multi-zone support. We also have more node configurations than any of the other public cloud providers. We have 27 different node configurations that you can use with GCVE, giving you the ability to optimize your storage, compute, or memory utilization to get the best price and the best fit and best match for your current hardware. We have great commercial innovation where you can use commitments that are short-term and long-term to get pricing and commitments that work for you, as well as support for license portability. So we were the first cloud provider to offer VCF license portability, where you can bring your VCF license to Google Cloud. We also have dedicated up to 200 gigs of east-west bandwidth in many locations, and we have just a very simple network integration. I think that's something that folks often overlook is just how easy it is to integrate networking with Google. With a global VPC, you integrate your network to one single VPC, and then every service in every location in the whole world routes correctly without having to set up complex routers, routes that interconnects. Really quickly, I want to go through a couple of results we saw from a study we did with IDC on the success of Google Cloud VMware Engine for customers. So, I think this goes through kind of our immediate impacts, the medium term, and then long-term impacts. So from the immediate impacts, we really saw folks be able to migrate very fast. 58% faster app migrations with Google Cloud VMware Engine compared to other services. A lot of this is based on the fact that we can spin up clouds and we can spin up networking very, very quickly. We saw a 52% efficiency boost for security teams. Because of our integration with Cloud Armor, VPCSC, and Google's global network, there's a lot less network security that has to be configured to run GCVE in Google Cloud versus other clouds. And we saw increased flexibility and scalability. 74% less time keeping the lights on because Google handles all the operational tasks. We do your hardware maintenance, updates, any hardware failures and replacements, network management, switch management is all done by Google staff. So lightens the load on you and gives you more time to focus on the things that are important. And we saw overall 3-year OpEx savings of about 391% ROI. So you can see huge long-term impact if you commit to using this long-term. And we think you can transform your business. We have Gen AI models and platforms that run right alongside GCVE that you have access to when you're using VMware Engine and Google Cloud. And I think a lot of folks like to think, what should I do? Should I look at a lift and shift where I just move VMware straight to the cloud, or do I start looking at some transformation where certain workloads I think about transforming? And we think you get the best of both worlds with GCVE, with kind of this lift and transform model. We can connect on-premise into the cloud and run your VMware Engine environment, so you can have still an on-premise site connected through an interconnect to an in-cloud site. You can migrate your entire environment into VMware Engine in the cloud. But in both cases, you have the ability to transform by connecting to additional, AI native services that Google runs alongside. So, you bring your database in VMware onto Google Cloud, and now you can connect it to BigQuery or connect it to Vertex and start using AI agents on top of your data without having to do a full app transformation. It's also a really easy way to get to a data warehouse. We can lift and transform there too. We move your VMware Engine environment, you move your VMware environment into VMware Engine, connect that up to BigQuery or Cloud Storage or Cloud SQL, and then get visualization from the Google's tools like Looker and Google Data Studio. And again, always talking about AI, we can connect into our native AI models. So we can hook into the generative AI app builder, we can hook into Vertex, and have those hooked directly into VMware Engine to give you access to some of the cutting edge AI research that Google has done without having to do any app transformation or app migration out of VMware. It gives you the best of both worlds. And like I said, we were the first to offer these flexible options for license portability. We allow you to use your VCF licenses that are portable between on-premise and Google Cloud. You can bring your license. We have 1 and 3 year commits on that to get better pricing for your migration of those licenses. And we also support mixed environments. If you have 10 nodes of BYO of portable licensing and you need to add a couple more nodes, you can use the Google provided licenses alongside the ported licenses as well. So a lot of flexibility for you to deploy in Google Cloud. I'm now going to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to do a technical overview and a demo of VMware Engine. That's going to be a live demo. Always exciting.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Can everyone see me and hear me here? Let's see, am I in? Matt, can you see me? Okay, good. Just want to make sure everyone could hear and see me. My name is Ryan Massey, so I've been at VMware here for a little over 6 years, working with all the hyperscalers. I've been doing Google a little over 1.5 years now, so I've got a good idea, and I really enjoy the Google the team and the hyperscaler. So yeah, I'll go through a quick GCV technical overview and demo here. I think we got a couple of slides. We'll go ahead and jump to the first slide here. So currently with GCVE, when you do a deployment right now, you're going to end up with these versions: ESXi7 for ESX vCenter 7, vSAN, etc., and some of the NSX versions 3.2, as well as HCX. Now there is some previews going on, which I'm sure Matt will talk about a little bit later, where we are doing some newer implementations with 8. So you'll get some of those new features, including with some of maybe even the new nodes where you'll get the express storage architecture, with vSAN, some future features like that. But currently, this is the stack that we are currently running. So we'll go ahead and jump to the next slide here. I wanted to talk a little bit about, this is a common thing that I run into with customers. They always have questions, around how do I connect into this, right? I've set up my private cloud. What kind of connection options do I have? So there's quite a few. If you're just a small team and you're wanting to connect into your cloud, there's VPN options. So I mean, you could do something as simple as OpenVPN. You could do a client VPN and jump in and be able to connect, from different endpoints directly into your cloud. And then there's, higher end VPNs where, you can use Google Cloud VPN, for example. Maybe you have an on-premises data center or, a data center that you want to connect in and you want to utilize that VPN to get connected. A lot of what we see with a lot of the larger customers that I've been working with, I've done a ton of migrations with Google Cloud and some of the other hyperscalers, but we're usually looking at a dedicated connection. So, with GCVE, you're going to want to look at that cloud interconnect, right? You're going to get that high bandwidth, anywhere from 10 to 100 gig. This is something where you work with your provider and you can get it's kind of like, some of the other providers offer direct connect, express route, and this is the equivalent to that. And you do get that dedicated interconnect. There's also an option with partners. So maybe you don't have, that cloud interconnect option, but you can lease, you can go through a partner and you can actually get a connection through them. I see a lot of people going through, I think Megaport, Equinix, maybe you're sitting in an Equinix data center, you can utilize some of their connection options. SD-WAN, we do see some Velo Cloud, some other options to get connected in. So that is something that we do see customers using. I haven't seen it on a huge scale, but it's flexibility, right? You have that option to use software-defined WAN. So if you need to use it, that is available. So let's go to the next slide here. And this is just this is one of my favorite slides. You could probably go into this slide for a very long period of time, but I wanted to just kind of give a quick overview. You can see here from an on-premises data center, maybe that is actually at your data center, or, more than likely it's going to be at a co-location, right? We see a lot of customers, sitting in AT&T data centers. Equinix is a big one. And, so you'll have those options to do, that cloud interconnect, directly within that data center and get connected into the Google network. So that's kind of what we see here. And you'll see that Google Cloud VMware Engine is also directly connected in there. And they've made a lot of great changes over the past, I guess year or maybe even months, to where the configuration is much easier. There used to be kind of some things you'd have to do to get, maybe connected your GCVE connected into GCP. They've simplified that a ton where you can create a VMware Engine network that is actually created when you're creating your private cloud. And I'll kind of go through a little demo that shows the creation of a private cloud. But you can see here, just like Matt was talking about, the direct connection to other Google services, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest advantages is you can have your Google Cloud VMware Engine workloads or your VMware workloads all sitting there. Maybe you want to connect on the back end to a SQL database. You might want to connect back into Vertex, the AI or BigQuery or some of these other native Google platforms. So that's the huge advantage, right? And you can actually maybe even create a load balancer and have your web server sitting within Google Cloud VMware Engines and front load them with a load balancer sitting in GCP. So it gives you kind of the Swiss Army knife of all these tools that you can use, and gives you a really big advantage from a connectivity standpoint. So and I think, was that the last slide that I had given you, Matt? Okay. I'll go ahead and share here, and then I'll just jump in directly to the demo. That's what everybody likes anyway, right? Is demonstrations here. So I have done some preloading here. I'm just going to start out the demonstration here with just directly jumping into the Google Cloud. So I don't know how many people are familiar with the Google Cloud, but once you log in, you kind of have all your options, your compute engine. But what we're going to kind of concentrate on is, you can search for VMware Engine here and then pull it up. And you'll see that VMware Engine is directly in the Google Cloud Console. You can see I have a private cloud already created. And one thing I always do is pin this. That way, if you go to your little menu, and I do have a ton of stuff pinned here, but I can go directly to my VMware Engine that's pinned, and I get kind of to the same spot here. But just a quick overview of this, you can see the private clouds. I do have one created. You can see I have one cluster. And the VMware Engine I was talking about earlier, the VMware Engine network that was created by default, that exists here. It'll give you some information about what your FQDNs are, your host names for your vCenter, your NSX manager, and your HCX, which I'll log into quickly later and kind of show you. You can see here that it'll give you the list of the VMware engine networks. This could probably be a longer topic, but they've made it very easy to configure. You set this up, it connects your private cloud into the Google network so that you can access other features. From under here, you can create external IP addresses if you want to have external IP directly into the GCVE, and that's something that could be a whole nother subject. But really, I'll concentrate here on the private cloud. So what I'll do is we'll just walk through the creation of a private cloud, and then I'll kind of give you a lot of information about what it's like to create a private cloud in here. So I'll do create here from within the private clouds. And we'll just name this VMUG private cloud. And you can't do any uppercase for some reason, so I ran into that a couple times. So you can choose the private cloud type. I'll briefly go over these. We'll do a standard private cloud today, but there is options to do a single node, right? And this is something that you might want to do for testing, just to show, maybe some of your peers how this works. Maybe you want to do a lab. It is deleted within 60 days, so you want to take that as note. There's no SLA, right? For this. This is just for testing. And then you can also do stretched private clouds. This is just like vSAN stretched, but there's only a couple of regions, right? If you're in some of these regions, you can utilize a stretched private cloud, which stretches across, we used to call it between two racks, but this will be, between two different availability zones. So that if you do lose one side, right, you can bring all the other VMs back up, using that technology for stretched private cloud. And I'll just show you real quick. Like, for example, if I was to choose Australia, you can choose the two different zones that it will deploy, the fault zones that it will deploy. So that's an option. But we'll stick with the standard private cloud here. And I'll go ahead and choose, we'll just do East here, if I could find it, US East 4. And you can see here, we do have two zones here. Now, you can't do stretched private. You can't do stretched between these currently, but what you could do is utilize these two different zones. Maybe you have an SRM set up. Maybe you've got a cluster in East A and a cluster in East B. You can utilize, separation between those two. Now, that wouldn't help you necessarily with a region failure, which we rarely see, right? But, maybe there's some issues with one of those racks or one of those availability zones. You could always have a backup or something like that. So we'll choose US East 4. We'll choose A as the availability zone. I'll just name this VMUG cluster. And then we'll get into the node configuration. I know Matt has a node configuration sheet that he will show you later, but I'll briefly go over it here. This has helped me a ton with customers. I've been working with customers doing sizing, and you have everywhere from customers that, are CPU heavy. Maybe they're storage heavy. Maybe they need 3 nodes for CPU, but they need 100 for storage, and that may be an exaggeration, but they've really made it easy to really nail this down. You'll notice, like for VE2s, for example, you might have a standard VE2. And this is talking about the storage here. So you'll notice standard is 25.6 terabytes per node-ish. If we jump into a large, we get a little bit more storage. So, if you're storage bound, you might start looking at these different types. But then we can even go into CPU. So this is what I love too. You might not need much CPU, so you can go all the way down to, let's say a VE2 64, which is going to be 36 cores, 64 hyper-threaded cores. So the point is once I do a sizing, we'll usually get like an RV Tools or some data from a customer. It just gives me some really good options to really nail it down for the exact customer's needs. So I'll go ahead and just choose, we'll just do a V2 standard, 128. And then you can do a 2. This is interesting. So you might not see this in some of the other hyperscalers. The 2, obviously you would need a witness, right? So you can come down here and actually add a storage node. And I think I can choose this one. I'll just do 1. So this is one way to do, like a 2 node, if you were to look into that as well. just an option, but I'll go ahead and just do a 3-node here. We'll change this storage only node. And one thing I wanted to note real quick, we do have some customers that have maybe Workable or some, software that really requires, some specific cores. So you may have to, drop down your core count. Maybe you only have 16 cores of licenses. So you can get this node, but then you have the access to kind of lower these cores so you don't have to pay that extra licensing. Another thing, for example, let's say I choose, a 5-node cluster. It'll show you here that I have, around 10,240. Let's see, I think that's memory. Let me jump this back down real quick to 3. Yeah, so this is going to be the storage right here. So, for example, if I want to up the storage, I might want to go ahead and add that VE2 128 storage node right here. Oh, wait. Let me see where it went. Actually, let me choose. There might not be one available for that. I'll just choose a 64, for example. You can see here I have 115 terabytes. So we'll jump this down. And you can see here it's available here. So I'll choose 1. And you can see that the storage count is going up here, right? So this runs into an advantage when maybe you have a customer that has extremely large file shares or something, or large VMs that have storage. You can complement this with some storage nodes, and you don't have to pay for the entire node, the CPU and the memory, everything. So just another wheel you can turn has become a great advantage for some customers. So I thought I'd touch on that a little bit. Now, this is the same as it has been in the past. You'll want to choose a management IP range. We usually stick around a /22 or a /20, but there is a link here. I'll go ahead and jump into this that will tell you how many nodes you can support with this specific CIDR range, right? So we'll kind of jump down here. Yeah, right here. So, for example, if you choose a /20, you can get up to 200 nodes. Now, there is still a limitation. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. 96 nodes is going to be the limit per private cloud.
Right
So,
now we have 96 nodes for private cloud, but we are working on some enhancements there.
yeah. Yeah, so this gives you a good kind of chart here. I think most new or all new implementations are going to go with this IP plan version 2.0. Which gives you a little more granularity around how you want to set up your subnets and stuff like that. So you really want to probably be looking at this number over here. So, for example, you can't go wrong with a /20, right? You can get up to that 200 nodes. So, just depending on how many nodes, if you're only going to do 20 nodes, maybe do a /23. So I'll go back here. We'll do just a example /20 here. Why not? If I can get the 0. And another note here is if you're going to connect this to on premises, or if you have other GCP workloads, you don't want this to overlap, right? Because this is going to be routed. You don't want to overlap with any other workloads that exist in your environment. So just keep in mind of that if you need to work with your networking team to make sure that you get a usable IP range there. And then this is the VMware Engine network I was talking about earlier. I already have one created. It has been created from the first private cloud that we created, so I don't need to do that again. You can actually just use the existing one. And that's pretty much it on creating a cluster. I'm not going to create this one so that my team doesn't yell at me, but I will cancel this and we'll go and look at the existing private cloud here. So I'll just click into the private cloud. It'll give you a little bit more information about this particular one. You can see here the storage that I have, the amount of memory, and I have 3 nodes. So one thing I like to do is you can see down here, how do I get into this thing, right? I got my vCenter server host name, NSX, HCX manager. So one thing I do, I don't actually have like a VPN connected or anything right now. This is one of the newer labs we recently spun up. So we've been using what's called IAP. So you can use this IAP, which is going to be, your identity access or identity aware proxy. And this is another easy way that you can get in to your environment. if you just want to, have a one-off connection. So that's what I'm using here. It is connected to, here, I'll show you real quick. I'll jump back. It's actually connected to one of our VMs that are sitting within the GCP side of it. So we've got a little DNS VM sitting here that's being used as a jump box. So I'm going to use this IAP to connect to that. In fact, I'm already connected. So this sits on the network with my vCenter, my NSX. So I'll go ahead and log in here just as an example to the vCenter that is part of that private cloud that we had created. And I'll jump over to inventory here. And then you can see here, I mean, this is, just as expected. This is your vSphere infrastructure. So it's going to, obviously, it's going to look exactly the same as it would on premises. This is your ESXi hosts. You can do all the same things that you would from your on-premises. You can see here I'm creating some VMs. We were getting ready to do some migration examples here. But yeah, so we're logged into vCenter just like you would. I'll go ahead and show you here. We can log into NSX. And one thing I'll note is the username and password is saved here, but you can go back into your back into your VMware engine page, and then you can go to your private cloud. Click here. And then down here, it'll give you all the key details. So if you need to log in, here's the host name. So for example, for NSX, I'm gonna go ahead and click key details. I'm gonna copy that password, go back into my IAP proxy here, admin, username, and then log into my NSX. And there you are. And then you're logged into NSX. You can do what you normally do, go into networking. You can actually kind of, create tier 1 gateways if you want, segments. You can see here I've got a test tier 1 gateway with some segments that I've been testing. Yeah, and there's lots of things that you can do. Google mainly controls the tier 0 gateway, right? Because that's how they connect BGP into their environment. And, you don't want to be editing BGPers or anything like that. But there is some small things that you can do. I know if you work with Google, to get some things changed within the tier 0 gateway. And then let me just jump onto one more thing. I know we could always come back to this. I don't want to take up all the time. Last thing here that you can do is log into HCX. So I'll cancel this. I've got my HCX here. It says to use the vCenter credentials. So I'm going to go back into here. Oh, and I've already got it saved. So VMware HCX. One thing I recommend from a VMware level, I've done quite a few of these, is I try to stay within the VMware HCX login and work from here. Now, obviously, there's going to be an HCX, blade here that you can use. And in the history of doing this for me, I've always had better luck with here. Sometimes, for some reason, this may not update as well as just going direct into the HCX. So from here, if you've worked with HCX, you create your site pairs. You can connect your on-premises data center into the GCVE, create your interconnect, and start migrating workloads. I mean, it's really that simple. We've had, customers be up and migrating within an hour with this, right? So lots of good options there. Let me double check my slides here. And I think that's kind of what I had. I don't want to take too much time. We can always jump back into this, Matt, if there's anybody that wants to look at something in the lab, but just in the interest of time, that's kind of what I have. I'll kill my share
Great.
here. All right. And I'll hand it back to you, Matt.
Thanks. Let's jump back in here. So I'm going to walk you through some of our roadmap of some of the things that have just come out and some of the things we're about to release. So the first thing we just announced at Google Cloud Next last week or the week before is the launch of all of our VE2 node shapes. So we had VE1 standard. This was our standard node shape for the last few years, and we had released a very small selection of VE2 nodes in select regions. We're now expanding the regions and expanding the number of shapes that we have. So we have 4 different types of VE2 nodes, the small, standard, large, and mega, which contains between 12.8 and 51.2 terabytes of all-flash vSAN storage. They all have 200 gig networking, east-west and north-south. And we have core variations from 32 all the way up to 64 cores. So more core dense, more RAM, we have up to 2 terabytes of RAM, more storage. The VE2 Mega with 64 cores and 51.2 terabytes of all flash is like one of the biggest VMware nodes you can get from a public cloud provider today. So very, very dense nodes, helps you optimize costs, helps you optimize for storage heavy or compute heavy workloads. We also are just starting to roll out vSphere 8. So we have our new PCs that are coming out with vSphere 8 right around now. We have a preview of vSphere 8 with NSX 4.2 for all new PCs. And we'll be rolling this out to the whole fleet in the coming weeks and months. So everything will get upgraded to the 8.x train. We've recently released, as part of this upgrade path, is what we're calling Upgrade Center. This is a new feature in the UI. It lets you set time periods of when you want us to try to optimize upgrades. So you can give us maintenance windows, what days and times you'd like us to do upgrades. We do try to make all of these upgrades as non-disruptive as possible. We add a temporary node in to make sure you're never resource constrained at no charge. So we'll add another node to your cluster, we'll perform the rolling upgrades and then remove that temporary node. So you don't lose out on having enough capacity in your cluster. But just because there is some possible performance issues, we are going to give people the ability to schedule these maintenance windows. You'll also receive notifications here. So if we're going to do an upgrade to HGX or an upgrade to vSphere itself, or to NSX, you'll get upgrades here in the Update Center. We've also introduced support for Essential Contacts. So Essential Contacts are used by the rest of Google Cloud as well. It gives you the ability to set up things for security, for technical and billing alerts. And you'll get, allergies killing. You'll be able to get specific VMware engine notifications. So things like node replacements, upgrades of vCenter, NSX, or HCX, and then also for system events like vSAN utilization is too high or stretch PC impacts. If you have a stretch PC and the witness can't communicate to one of the sites for some reason if there's a failure. So all of these can come through now. The Essential Contacts let you have really fine-grained control on your email. One other thing that we just released that I don't have a slide for, but I just want to talk about is we've recently introduced soft delete. So if you delete a private cloud now, it goes into a 7-day, what we call soft delete state. This gives you additional protection. So if someone accidentally deleted something, if you realize, a file I needed was on that PC, we don't actually wipe everything until 7 days have elapsed. So it gives you a little bit more safety in accidental deletion and losing any data. Lastly, I just want to jump into a couple VMware Engine customer stories. We'll do 3 quick slides here, and then we'll take some Q&A. So we had a couple customers that have been really successful. We have case studies that will be linked in the deck here for you to read through if you want to. But HD Supply, they had a data center lease that was expiring. They were looking at, should we do a extension of the data center lease, do a expensive hardware refresh, or should we do a lift and transform and move our VMware operations to the cloud? And so they decided to do a full-scale migration. We actually were able to complete their migration in 50% of the projected time. So we beat their expected migration timeline by half. They saw a huge increase in IT staff productivity because folks weren't doing hardware management in the data center anymore. And the workload deployment speed, our ability to deploy a new VMware cluster compared to the on-premise deployment speed improved by about 80%. Again, because Google Scale, Google data centers, we have everything kind of really tuned up and the ability to deploy hardware very quickly. ADT, been a great partner of ours. They also were looking at a capacity constrained data center where they had been growing really rapidly and weren't able to get new hardware into their data center. So they decided to burst capacity into Google Cloud for VMware Engine. So they moved a lot of their DR as well as the organic growth that was beyond what they had. They migrated some of those less critical apps over in 90 days, reduced OpEx on their apps by about 76% annually on the apps that were moved to Google Cloud. So great story here of them both having a DR use case and having a burst capacity use case where they ended up keeping stuff with Google Cloud long term. And lastly, FTT. Everybody loves flowers. They were also due for a hardware refresh, and we're looking at, should we build a new data center or should we move to the cloud? And at these inflection points, I think it's a great time to look at cloud. And they also decided that they would look at moving over to a VMware hosted in Google Cloud. They were able to move everything over. They moved to a much newer hardware stack, so they were able to increase their transaction capacity through the faster Intel chips we're running in our new hardware. They reduced a lot of the administrative overhead. They got improved elasticity. So, you can imagine FTT, they do a lot of work on Valentine's Day. They do a lot of work on Christmas. And so they were able to use our flexible burst capacity to increase the number of VMware hosts they had just temporarily during those burst events without having to purchase them full time. So huge savings there. They were able to eliminate a lot of the sprawl they had by auto scaling and bursting capacity usage. So another great case study there. And now we will turn over to Q&A. I think we have some folks on the line that have been collecting questions for us. And Cheryl, I don't know, are you going to do these live, or should we jump into the Q&A section here?
All right. Hey, friends. What I can do is I'll
Hey,
go ahead
Michael.
and I'll read out the questions. And, I have a couple of my own that I'm sure our audience is, it's one of those things where when you have a question, raise your hand. There's probably somebody else who's listening who might have a similar question who just hasn't felt like raising their hand. So one question, will the new VE2 shapes be available in every region or only a couple?
Yeah, so that's a great question. They're not available in every region yet. We have 6 regions with VE2s right now. They'll be rolling out to maybe 6 or 7 more over the rest of the year. And then we'll look at demand and see where we have folks asking for them, and we'll roll out some more wherever we need them.
Makes sense? And so like, what about like VMware Engine 2 nodes that are in like different clusters, but in the same private cloud? Can we do that? Can we have different VE2 nodes in the same private cloud?
Yeah, you can have different VE2 nodes. So if you have some mega nodes and some small nodes, some that are optimized for storage, some that are optimized for compute, you can have those in the same private cloud. We today don't support mixing VE1 and VE2 in the same private cloud, but that is a roadmap feature that we should have out later this year.
What about different shapes in the same cluster?
Not in the same cluster, in the same private cloud, but they have to be cluster homogeneous.
It's important to know. Another question that we saw come in here is like, how does one decide like which node to pick? Like there's a lot of options. Like you said, there's a lot of permutations, CPU, memory, storage, IO, like whatever parameters you have there. How do you pick the one that's for you?
Yeah, I was going to say I can probably jump into that one too, Matt. That's something that we deal with a lot. And when we work with the customers, the sizing is probably one of the most important things that I run into is we get as much data from the customer as we can. RV Tools is great. It's like probably one of the best things, but not all customers has RV Tools, but we'll get a printout.
It's free.
Yeah, exactly. It's free, right? We'll get a printout of how much storage they have, how much CPU you're using. And sometimes we can even get maybe some live data or something, and we'll be able to tell exactly, right? How, do they need this specific, do they need the large one? Do they have a lot of storage? Do they need this specific CPU? Do they need the 80 cores? Do they need the 100 cores? And we'll be able to really narrow that down from the customer data. So
yeah, like I can imagine, like for example, if you have like a transcoding workflow that's doing some video changing around, you're going to probably want to have like a specific AVX hardware feature on that CPU as opposed to just like running it through, a kind of a pipe, so to speak, right? And give you that benefit of the optimization. So what I'm hearing is like it's workload dependent, but there's a lot of options pretty much to accommodate basically every workload type, right?
Yeah, and that's the advantage of being in the cloud, right? I mean, let's say you set up a cluster with 40 cores or something, and maybe you're running into a little bit of an issue. You might be able to just easily set up another cluster, migrate those workloads over there, and just retire that other cluster. So you don't have to procure new hardware and all that. You can you've got a little bit of leeway to move stuff around. So
nice. Well, speaking of leeway, so like we talked a little bit about license portability. And so I just want to double click on that a little bit. So like, if you have portable VCF licenses, are you running them in one GCEV or are you running them on-prem or both? Or like, how do you how do you live with that portability? And like, is that something that you do regularly where you're moving licenses around quarterly, or is it more like we bought a bundle, some of it's over here, some of it's over there? Like, how do we operationalize that, and what's that look like?
Yeah, yeah, and you can basically. I mean, so the portability, you can basically bring those to GCVE, right? And in fact, let's say you purchase a certain amount of portable license, you bring them to GCVE. Maybe you want to burst, then you can actually then go with, licenses directly from Google on top of it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, no, Matt, because I know this sometimes changes, but then you could burst with, licenses directly from Google if you wanted to do that, or vice
Yeah.
versa. So.
We do today. We do require that you commit to at least 1 year when bringing a VCF license for portability. Just so because of the tracking requirements, make it too difficult to do kind of real time right now. In the future, I think when we have a automated system set up to track license portability, we may expand that to shorter timeframes.
Got it. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of, I guess, putting myself in the shoes of an admin, who our audience is mostly here today on the call. Um, if I'm, well versed in vCenter and how VMware operations work and how to manage things within that side of the house, how much Google Cloud Console do I need to learn in order to be operational here? Like, do I have to become a GC, Google Cloud expert, or is it really just, we set up the racks and away they go?
Yeah, I mean, from the VMware side, Matt, you can jump into it because I know you. But from the VMware side, it's very minimal, right? But in my case, you get to kind of where you want to learn, a lot of the Google side just because of the great technology. But just from a minimum, you really just need to know how to get to the VMware blade, and create your clusters, right? Like that. You need to learn a little bit maybe about Google projects and kind of just how they sit within there. But the learning is very minimal. I mean, you could probably get 10 minutes, and be ready to do your VMware cloud. But
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I think one of the things that we always tell our VMware admins when they ask us about the service is that we are really providing just a standard vSphere environment for them. There's no special software version we're running. Like it's the same thing that you're going to run on-prem if you install it on-prem. We have the GCP wrappers around it, so it makes it easy to set up a cluster, makes it easier to connect to our global VPC. But once you have that set up, you're really in stock vSphere. And as a VMware admin, you don't need to know a ton of GCP stuff if you don't want to.
Yeah, and you could almost set it up, transparently where you may just give your admins, internally on premises the addresses of their vCenter servers. They may not know it's sitting in, Google for that matter. So.
That's really neat because I can imagine, in today's world, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of new technologies coming around. And one of the values of VMware and VCF is that it's the same wherever you are, right? It's that, vCenter is orchestrating things. You have ESXi hosts, you have your workloads running on them. Things are provisioned in the same way. And so there's a familiarity there. And so that was one of the things I know back in 2015, when I was actually on the cloud team. We had this little service called vCloud Air. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but when we were talking with the customers, it was like, hey, the value here is that I don't need to go learn an entirely new cloud stack. Like AWS is going to call their stuff this, Google's called their stuff that, Azure calls their stuff something else, but like I know VMware. So this sounds like a really great solution to kind of be able to take advantage of some of the rapid deployment, the racking and stacking, and the high throughput node connectivity stuff that you can have without needing to manage that yourself. So it's almost like the GC console, the Google Cloud Console ends up becoming kind of like iDRAC or ILO, right? In a sense, in addition to having to configure your routes and your switching and stuff like that on top of the thing.
Yeah, and we do, like I said, we do have full Terraform support for the GCVE side as well. And we have a GitHub page with a blueprint for you. So if you don't want to learn the GCP console at all and Terraform already, you can also just download the Terraform provider, and it's very kind of declarative to set up a cluster and set up a private cloud where you're really just doing a very simple Terraform setup too.
And that's really good because I think, Terraform is a great technology, and it's very interesting to have IBM acquired HashiCorp. We'll see how that develops. Like I said earlier in the call, Mitchell and I go back quite a ways. So it's really great to see that them succeed. And it's a great glue, it helps give a standard layer across everything. And I think that's, one of the values that we have, and seeing other folks kind of embrace that is a really smart choice for them. So I guess the other thing I'm curious about is like, when you have stuff inside of this environment, you've got stuff in your on-prem environment, what kind of stuff makes sense to have between the two? Like, would you have, like, for example, a catalog of ISO images on-prem, and then those get deployed in the cloud as needed? Or like, how do you handle sort of like the delineation of resources, what belongs up there versus what you keep on-prem? Maybe
Yeah,
Ryan's for you.
yeah, I can jump in. So from my side, I mean, it's always going to be on a customer by customer basis, right? I mean, it depends on what kind of environment, and we have a lot of even VDI environments, for example, right? Maybe they want to keep a lot of their templates in the cloud so that they can spin up their VMs there. There's even you can even put it in Google Object Storage, right? You might want to put some templates in there and deploy or in content, in content library within VMware. But it just depends. I mean, what we'll see is a lot of hybrid connectivity where maybe you have some, Active Directory read-only domain controllers sitting in the cloud, where, or maybe file storage with DFS that's, replicating across the way. And then there's even the DR scenarios like I was talking about earlier where you got SRM and so it kind of just depends on a customer by customer basis. We see a lot of labs at the very beginning, it seems like with customers they're like, well, let's put our lab out there and let's test that out. And then they love the lab so much they're like, well, let's just put everything else out there, and then maybe keep some smaller workloads back on premises.
Yeah, it sounds like a good way to test the waters, right? And I think it still gives admins that ability to have domain and control over things, which I think is what a concern of a lot of folks have right now. It's, data sovereignty is a big part of things, and data ownership, and like where that data resides and who has access to it, who can control it, and being able to backtrack and audit all of that, right? So there are definitely going to be applications where you want stuff on-prem, you've got all the spotlights on, all the security checks, all that stuff. But at the same time, like you said, maybe there's some read-only stuff you put on the cloud, lab-wise, learning lab, or just even POC stuff for future rollouts, right? It's a good
Yeah.
reason to use the cloud, to have that sort of flexibility of the racking and stacking is taken care of. You get a workload with a platform that you're familiar with without having to wait 6, 8, 12 months on procurement and then having to deal with the hardware cycle all, after the fact too, right? You don't want those servers
Yeah.
no more. Click button, gone.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of, I think security integrations that can make folks more comfortable with using the cloud for even sensitive data. We do have integration to a bunch of third-party key managers if customers want to keep their key management outside of Google to have two parties involved. So all of their keys can be in, say, Fortanix, and they can completely control their keys themselves. And if they ever want to revoke a key, no one would have access to the data, even Google. And we also support customer managed keys in our own cloud KMS as well. So full control of all key management that VMware is going to use for data encryption, which gives customers a little bit, bit of peace of mind there, where they maintain kind of another layer of control of their data residency and resiliency.
It's the name of the game in 2025. That's for sure. Cool. Well, I think we're approaching time, friends, and I'm certainly running out of interesting questions to ask. So, what I would say is let's invite Julianne back up. And before she does that, any final words or parting thoughts from either of y'all?
Yep, just
Right?
thanks everyone, and good seeing everybody. Good content.
Yeah, thanks everyone so much for coming. Really great to talk about VMware Engine with y'all. If you are interested in trying it out, like we said, we do have single node PCs, so you can deploy a single node, work with your sales team. We can usually get credits to cover usage for that as well. So you can try it out for 30 or 60 days at no charge with some credits to cover your initial deployment to test out the product. So happy to help help anyone with onboarding. Feel free to reach out to me and I can get you in touch with the right folks.
Yeah, and is there a link you can put up into the chat where folks maybe want to go to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I can throw a link in there, but Google is your friend here always. If you GCVE you'll get all of the great links that you need on the Google Cloud documentation for how to reach out to support and sales.
I remember when Google was an answer on a resume question, like, how will you learn this? Like, Google. And I was like, all right, hired.
Hired.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Julianne, send us off.
Alrighty, well, thanks everyone. I hope you learned something new today. Oh, I think I'm frozen. But like I said, we will post this recording on the website some point this week. And then as you exit the webinar, just be sure to answer those questions. There's only like 8 of them. It's really quick. We would just love to hear more about what you want to hear about. And then as well, we can give some feedback back to our speakers. So thanks everyone for your time today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Keep on keeping on, friends. Cheers.
Bye.